You're listening to My Band Rocks, an audiobiography, and my name is Keir DuBois. I'm not a real musician, but I play one on the internet. Since 1996, I've been a bassist and lyricist in several Southern California bands and side projects. The Mojo Wire, Honey White, Low Tide, Rad Blaster, and my own solo releases. In this podcast, I'm going to tell you all about it. And in this episode, I talk about The Weapon of Young Gods, an instrumental soundtrack album I made under my Low Tide side project moniker. I don't live in the moment. I've never understood phrases like stuck in the past or nostalgia is death. I love history, and I'm fascinated by patterns and parallels in my life and other lives. I think about the past a lot, personally and generally, and while sometimes I get hung up on things I can't change, more often I find meaningful creative fuel and identity when looking back. That was definitely the case when I started writing a novel circa fall 2006. It didn't come out of nowhere. I already held a pro-design job, but belatedly entered adulthood at 30 with a marriage, a mortgage, and no extracurricular hobbies when Honey White ended in spring 2007. So I wanted to explore ideas a bit larger than 3 verses and a chorus. Assuming grown-up responsibilities makes some people wax nostalgic for all the time they wasted being young, pretty, and bored. That happened to me after graduating with an English BA, but 5 years of office jobs balanced out well with band gigs at night. I'd cram my few nostalgic impulses into half-hearted short stories when unsuccessfully applying to grad school writing programs. But I didn't try refining them until I saw Rian Johnson's Brick film. That stylized slice of sunshine noir was the final spark I needed to begin writing what became my first novel, The Weapon of Young Gods. It proved extremely difficult. I was trained as an analytical writer, so tackling fiction was a spastic plague of false starts. I couldn't find the right headspace until late one night when I spontaneously barfed out 12 pages while listening to a band called the Mermen. Their instrumental epics worked wonders, so I tried other bands like Tortoise and Explosions in the Sky, which were great, but not for sustained inspiration. I needed background ambience that evoked dreams and memory, because the novel's non-linear setting and plot were shaping up that way. But I never found the perfect fit until I realized I could make it myself. I had lots of rough, unused recordings to build on, many via my Honey White bandmates. In early 2004, I'd recorded Billy doing drum demos, but they'd been gathering digital dust, so I unearthed those for all-purpose percussion. We'd also helped Brian record percussion to sample on his increasingly eclectic solo songs. The 3 of us spent a memorable July Saturday at the Corridan Art Gallery, tracking weird sounds while surrounded by an abstract art installation. Brian took about half those recordings, and I kept the rest, but I admit that I didn't fully appreciate what he was doing at the time. Latter-day Honey White tunes were often longer and slower, but I still loved conventional, snappy pop rock, and tended to favor those in rehearsal and at shows. However, once I started recording solo, I understood Brian's approach, and tried applying it myself. I didn't come close then to what Brian has now mastered in his band The Neurofarm, but the idea was liberating. Irregular arrangements, atmospheric layers, and no pressure for lyrics. My new approach did have an obscure precedent. In 1999, during a Mojo Wire hiatus, Bryn and I taped several loose, unformed jams, with him on drums and me exploring my echo bass. named our side project Low Tide, made 5 tracks, pressed about 3 CDRs, called it Dive, and promptly abandoned it once the Mojo Wire started up again. Low Tide wasn't truly my solo project, but it was close enough, so reviving that name seemed appropriate for my not truly solo book soundtrack with significant contributions from Brian and Billy. The actual recording process was pretty quick. I began in November 2007 by melding new echo bass tracks into a short, unstructured piece I named First Set, which sounded like breaking waves. It took about 3 to 4 hours total, establishing a good production baseline. If something sounded done after the first rush of inspiration and tracking, then it was done. I did fix a few things, but all the little imperfections added character. My main goals were, could I listen to it while writing? Could the songs fit the storyline? And could I develop character themes? Surprisingly, the answers were all yes. I pulled titles from the text, but if those didn't fit, I went with what each piece sounded like. Last Train Leaving the Abyss grooved menacingly. Starting fires crackled with compressed drums. And It's Quiet Up Here enjoyed the solitude of altitude. Some tunes are truly unique. Backward Sphere was a lone major scale amidst minor key dirges. And fending off implosion burbled beneath murky Brian ambience. The sequence matched the novel's plot, but several recurring musical phrases connected the album front to back. The main theme, from opener Calaveras Desagradables, frequently showed up later in the album, arpeggiated in the morbid freeze, disjointed in concussions. And beaten stupid at the end of This Won't Hurt a Bit. That latter song, like several others in this sequence, also continued an earlier opposing theme from Accidental Recon. Immortals on the Loose. Four others were unfinished Honey White demos. Concussions and Leave the Rest in Ruins came from Tempting Fate, a song I didn't properly finish until years later with both Rad Blaster and Honey White. Immortals on the Loose, and This Won't Hurt a Bit, Trample on the Bones of Hold Still, a Honey White studio outtake. The finished Weapon of Young Gods album was both a massive departure and logical next step from Honey White. I had to prove to myself that I could make music alone if I had to, and this did the trick. Creatively, I got as close as I ever had to replicating the mix of echo and reverb that my brain perceives as the passing of time. Like all of my self-produced recordings, I struggled with it near the end, but overall it turned out well enough to earn a low-profile release in March 2008. Ambient instrumental albums aren't exactly chartbusters, so I limited it to about 10 to 20 hard copies, uploaded it to iTunes, and called it a day. I didn't expect it to age as well as it has, though. Of all the music projects I've been part of, this is the one I listen to the most for the pure pleasure of it. It's well sequenced, but many songs work as individual pieces, and the album itself has an identity apart from the novel it's nominally attached to. It works as a soundtrack, too. Most songs still evoke the story and characters, zapping me back to late nights bashing out undercooked fiction. I haven't mentioned the novel much because it was mostly irrelevant while I recorded. I wrote the book for the same reasons I wrote songs. Once it was done, it purged multiple angsty hang-ups from my system. The story's idea spawned the music, and the music was great fuel for completing a first draft in 2009 and 10. And then a rewrite in 2012, when I finally self-published it. It may be just another cheap, self-aggrandizing pile of vomit in the sea of vanity-pressed pulp, but it's my pile of vomit, and I can't disown it. I've whined about that elsewhere, though, so I won't repeat myself other than to say writing this novel helped me create a far more enduring work. A soundtrack album I'm still really proud of. Some days I can't believe I actually did it. The Weapon of Young Gods was produced by me, Keir DuBois, from sessions at Corridan Gallery in Santa Barbara, California, July 2005. The players were me, Keir DuBois, on bass and effects, Brian Wolf on guitar and effects, and Bill Fedderson on drums and percussion. Additional recording and production by me, Keir DuBois, at My Band Rocks HQ in Ventura, California, from November 2007 to March 2008. All songs by Low Tide and copyright 2008. All rights reserved. That's all for this episode of the My Band Rocks Audiobiography. My name is Keir DuBois. All recollections herein are mine, and if I'm wrong, I welcome any corrections or clarifications from my former bandmates, or anyone else who was there. I'll return with another episode soon. Follow my infrequent band posts at MyBandRocksPod on Instagram and Twitter, or visit mybandrocks.com for a little more info. Thanks for listening.